So why make this video? If you're a subscriber to the channel or have watched the channel before, you will probably know that we came to Ireland from the UK. You'll have watched our videos on life in Ireland or our hiking videos, possibly both subjects. We felt that this would be a way for you to get to know us better, and hopefully by your comments we will get to know you. We obviously look at Ireland from a different perspective to that of an Irish national. Do we approve of the Irish way of life? Watch this video and our other videos to find out. If you do not find this video to your taste, please remember it is different to our others. So try one of our normal content to see if you prefer that. Gabi and I met in 2006 when she joined the taxi company that I worked at. The company is based at the railway station in Brentwood in Essex. Brentwood is a typical country town and is the first Essex town east of London. Gabi and I waited 11 years before entering into a relationship. Coincidentally, we both lived in mobile homes. I quit the taxi industry and became a labourer and driver with a block paving company. In June 2016, Britain made what we felt was the disastrous decision to leave the EU. Gabi and I felt it would be catastrophic. The UK was led by a party run by many now proven liars and corrupt politicians. Well, that's my personal opinion. I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for that. We were happy to go on our first anti-Brexit march in London. We were lucky enough to meet the now world famous Steve Bray. Gabi and I were by this time engaged, and with the uncertainty of Brexit and with Gabi being a German citizen, we decided to get married. And here we are at the wedding. In the foreground is our friend Chris. This is Chris's sister, our friend Laura, and in the background you can see Rosemary, a very dear friend of whom you'll hear more later. Next, this is another friend, Marilyn, who just happens to be Chris and Laura's mum. And Alan. Alan and Rosemary were our witnesses. The wedding took place in Chelmsford Town Hall and everything went smoothly. Marrying Gabi was the best decision I have ever made. We went on another march, full of hope, but the march failed to achieve its aims. In January 2020, as a sort of late honeymoon, we hopped on a ferry at Harwich, then drove from the Netherlands to Germany to visit my in-laws. Rosemary and I met at work in 1990 and soon became great friends. In fact, she was like my big sister. Sadly, in November 2020, she passed away. Bless her, she left the lion's share of her estate to me. Rosemary's death meant we had nothing to keep us in Essex or even the UK. We decided to move overseas. Germany was a possibility, but I don't speak the language. Gabi has always wanted to live in Ireland, not sure why, as she'd never been there, but it was accessible to both of us because I'm a UK national and Gabi is an EU national. Gabi had been talking with her German friend Katerina, who was living in Wales, and Katerina suggested that we move in with her until we found a place in Ireland. This suited us as South Wales is a lot closer to Ireland than Essex. Gabi and I visited Katerina and I built a polytunnel to store our belongings. Once it was complete, I started ferrying our goods down. I must have done at least a dozen trips, each at about 746 kilometres or 465 miles. But it wasn't just Gabi and I, we had 4 pets. This is Enya, Gabi's elderly cat. And this is my little pooch, Loki. Loki here looking extremely cute. And Megan, the calico in front, and her son Tony. And so on the 23rd of December 2021, we moved to Neath, South Wales. It came as a shock not to be in the countryside anymore, but at least we were there in time for a Welsh Christmas. Our cat count increased to 4 when this beautiful little kitten came into the garden and adopted us. We named him Darius. At the end of Henry Street was this lovely little pub. Steve the publican made us so welcome from the moment we walked through the door. There was always a great choice of beers as Steve brews on the premises. And we soon started making friends with the regulars. Alison held a quiz in the pub every Monday, and as I'd run pub quizzes for over 20 years, I started to alternate with her. But it wasn't all home and pub. We did have days out, this time to Cardiff. As you would expect from Wales, where a gathering of 3 or more people constitutes a choir, the Borough Arms is a very music-orientated pub, and this is only a small sample of the concerts they put on most bank holidays in the summer.
Wow, feel my temperature rising. Help me flaming, must be 109. Burning, nothing can cool me.
But houses don't buy themselves, so on the 13th of June 2022, after weeks of searching the net and numerous phone calls, I took a trip to the ferry terminal to go over to Rosslare. The ship was to Stena Europe and I got a cabin. The cabin was a complete waste of money, as the crossing is too short to take advantage of it. After the ferry I drove some of the quietest motorways I've ever seen and through beautiful countryside. I love this beautiful bridge at New Ross in County Wexford. After a 4-hour drive, I arrived at the guest house in Abbeyfield in County Limerick. I made a new friend. This is Walter. Once I dropped my suitcase off, I was back on the road, making a 6.5-hour round trip to Bonanadden in County Sligo to see a house that, at the time, I didn't realise would become our new home. I looked it over. It was rather shabby, but I could see it had great potential. I emailed the photos to Gabi and she seemed to approve of this house, so it went to the top of our list of possibilities. I got back to County Limerick to be greeted by this superb sunset. The following day I had no houses to see, so I took a trip to Tralee in County Kerry to explore the town and do a bit of Irish shopping. You can rush around Ireland looking for houses, and because you have deadlines to keep, you don't get the chance to see the scenery. So it was lovely to stop at the roadside and soak up County Kerry countryside. That evening I had my first proper Irish meal. Lovely. The next day I drove to Cardona in County Donegal to see this house. It was only a 900 kilometre 12-hour round trip. I appear to have lost all my photos of this house, so thank you Google Maps for this one. The house wasn't as suitable as the previous one, but I was told by the estate agent for the other house that the offer wasn't likely to be accepted. So we put in an offer on this house. On the way back, the Cardona estate agent called to say that the owners had received a substantially higher offer and would I like to match it. I said I wasn't prepared to raise my offer, and he said he would get back to the owners and discuss it. This made me think that there may not have been a higher offer and that possibly he was just trying to get more money out of me. Maybe not, but I don't know. Anyway, I told him I was no longer interested. I got back to Abbeyfield for another wonderful evening sky. The next morning I said my goodbyes to Walter and drove to Rosslare to catch the evening ferry. Almost as if Fishguard was trying not to be outdone by Abbeyfield, this beautiful rosy evening sky greeted the arrival of the ferry. So it was back to house hunting, but we did find times for days out, this time to Tenby, a place I first visited years ago. And then Amroth, which is just along the coast from Tenby, and Swansea Bay, with, at low tide, vast expanses of unspoilt sand. And it would have been rude not to sample the local Welsh ales. We went to comedy nights in the pubs in Neath, this time to see Paul Silky White, a comedian who deserves more fame than he has.
Go out at night, use my hours to fight. I fight crime in her myriad ways.
One of the best nights we had in Wales was going to see the world's only T-Rex tribute band, T-Rextasy, at Swansea Grand Theatre. But we were never short of musical entertainment with the Borough Arms as our local pub. One of the loveliest things about being back in Wales was being able to play with Katerina's tiny new kittens. I had selected 5 more houses and made appointments to view them, so I started to pack to go back to Ireland. Darius decided he didn't want me to go, so he sat in my suitcase. At Fishguard Ferry Terminal, it was a lovely moonlit evening. On the car deck, I parked next to this little beauty. The owner was surprised that I knew it was a Crossley. This time my B&B was in Kilkelly in County Mayo, but on the way there I took a detour to have another look at the prospective house in Bunnaladden, and I realised that I loved it. As I entered Kilkelly, I found this sign, Fáilte, which is Irish for welcome. The weird thing about this trip is that it was a waste of time. I called the agents for each of the 5 houses only to find that offers had been accepted on them or they had been taken off the market. I resolved to go back to my room to do some more web browsing for houses when the phone rang and a voice told me that the offer for the Bunnaladden house had been accepted. With all appointments being cancelled and a ferry booking that couldn't be changed, I had time to kill. So I popped over to what was to become our county town, Sligo. With the house purchase confirmed and me leaving a 10% deposit, I returned to Rosslare to board the ferry, from which I saw my first Irish train. I waved goodbye to Ireland for a second time. I must admit to feeling a little excited. Here was I, 65 years of age, and buying my first house, and in a different country. I know Wales is a different country from England, but it's still part of the UK. Ireland is its own entity. Wales was in sight, and I was realising how much hard work Gabi and I still had to do before the move. Relations with Katerina had soured. Ever since moving in, Katerina seemed to think that as we were in her house, she could run our lives. To me, this was confirmed when she got very angry that I had purchased the house without discussing it with her or seeking her approval. Because she felt this way, she gave us a deadline to be out of her house, a deadline that she knew was unachievable. Luckily, we only missed it by 3 days. So we had to knuckle down and get everything organised. I had to get a PPSN, which is the Irish equivalent of a national insurance number. This is required before a house purchase can be completed. We then needed to get all of the paperwork for the house, sign it and return it to my solicitors in Ireland. We had to pack all of our belongings that the courier was taking and list them for the customs. We then had to arrange for the pets to get all their inoculations and certificates. We had one small hiccup. I phoned the courier who I'd spoken to previously, and he said that they could collect that day or in 6 weeks. With Katerina breathing down our necks, 6 weeks was no use, so we agreed to that day, which meant rushing to finish all of the packing. Luckily, the courier didn't arrive until the evening, so hardly anything over what we needed was left behind. So with the house paid for, all paperwork done, the courier sorted and the ferry booked for 2 days later, we only had one thing to do. We went down to the Bar Arms to buy everybody a drink. So I put money behind the bar and said thank you to all the people who had become good friends and will remain so. So in the evening of the 2nd of September 2022, we arrived at the ferry port in 2 cars. Both were crammed with our belongings and pets. After driving through the night, we arrived at our new home, which Gabi was seeing for the first time. Unfortunately, our belongings wouldn't be delivered for another month. The following day, after we had finished unpacking, we went out to explore the important parts of the local town of Tubbercurry. I was never a Guinness drinker in the UK, but now, after much practice, I love it. One thing that I instantly fell in love with was the misty mornings over the fields. And there's so little light pollution, the dark skies give wonderful views of the stars. You've seen the misty mornings and the wonderful stars, but the sunsets from our new home are breathtaking. The house had been unoccupied for 3 years, so the grass and shrubbery was rather high. Loki loved it though. With the help of local farmer, neighbour and now friend John, using his farm machinery, we managed to get most of it under control. But grass keeps growing, and I bought a push petrol mower, but found that I cut the back meadow, then the front meadow, and by the time I'd done that, the back meadow was overgrown again. So I had to fork out even more money. I bought a sit-on mower, which we called Enzo, because it is Ferrari red. Fun, but a lot of money to pay. Back in Germany, Gabi had grown up in a town, whilst I, in the UK, grew up in the countryside, but on quite a busy road. So we were pleasantly surprised by the tranquility of Irish driving. I hadn't lived in Ireland long enough to be an Irish citizen, but my car had, so it was off with one set of plates and on with another. An absolutely fabulous summer was coming to a close, so we took advantage of our meadow as much as we could. Not long after moving in, it was our wedding anniversary, so we celebrated at Yates's in Curry. We took a quick trip over the border to Enniskillen in County Sligo to get some bits and pieces that aren't commonly found in the Republic. Meanwhile, the house was coming along nicely. This was the bedroom when we first moved in, and this is it a few weeks later. Despite it only being a month since we moved out, Katerina was pressurising us to pick up the last of our stuff. So it was back on the ferry. This was my 6th crossing and by far the worst. I'm not new to boats, but this was the first time I've ever been seasick. I took the opportunity to see the friends we made in Wales, and I planned it so I showed up on Monday, which was quiz night. Thankfully for the return journey, the sea was incredibly calm. The decision to leave the UK wasn't taken lightly. Gabi had already moved countries once, Germany to the UK, but I'd never lived in another country. Being married to a German lady is great, but worrying when the country you are living in is refusing some people residency, even if they are already there and married to a British citizen. So did we come to Ireland because we love the country? I didn't. Although on my first 2 house hunting visits, I come to realise how lovely it is and how wonderful the Irish people are. Gabi certainly didn't come because she loved the place, as until we moved in, she hadn't set foot in Ireland. We came here out of fear of what Britain was going to become post-Brexit. So do we love Ireland now? God, yes. It gets into your blood. Many British people think Ireland is Britain with a different accent. Nothing could be further from the truth. Many Brits also think that Ireland is Britain of the 1950s in terms of technology. Wrong. In many ways, Ireland is ahead of Britain. Gabi and I feel so accepted here. Ireland seems to have a place for us, and we have a place for Ireland, in our collective heart. So do we regret anything? No, not really. Do we miss anything? Yes. We miss the friends that we left behind. Friends from England and Wales. And I miss Speedway, my favourite sport. There's always a price to pay, but to live in Ireland makes it worthwhile.